What is significant is that Donald Trump, and we need to be honest here, is that Donald Trump has risen as a politician by playing the politics of violence. We need to cut through what Catalina Laugh said to try to deflect from this. It's
And
Donald Trump who, it's Donald Trump who called for violence against hecklers at his rallies. It's Donald Trump who has called for violence against demonstrators, such as those of Black Lives Matter. It's Donald Trump who has called for violence at times against members of the media. It's Donald Trump who has called for violence against the left, as he puts it generally. That's the way he operates. We know that. And the worrying thing in the aftermath of what has happened in the last 24 hours is that certain Trumpists, not most Republicans, who have joined Democrats in saying political violence is not a part of American society, should not be a part of it, is that you have Trumpists who, without any substance, are trying to blame the left.
just tell us, first of all, your reaction to what happened at that campaign rally.
This was an absolute dark day in American politics, and it's in a way I feel that it is a uniting factor. You know, you do see a lot of people coming together from both sides of the aisle, which I commend the people on the left who are, being very polite and sending President Trump prayers and good graces. I think that is a very classy thing. However, it does also show that rhetoric matters, and there's still a lot of hate and violence when it comes to politics. You know, the United Kingdom knows that better than anybody. And so it's sad that we've come to this point. You know, the last time this happened was in 1981. So it is a pivotal moment. Thank God that he was not killed. However, it does show exactly where our culture is and where politics is heading in the United States for modern day.
Yeah, one of our listeners, Paul, got in touch to note that even Donald Trump himself, in his Truth Social posts, his rhetoric was very different. He was talking about the need for unity. But do you think that that will be the reaction? Because clearly some in your party have reacted in a very, very different tone. J.D. Vance, who I'm sure, as you well know, is potentially even a vice presidential running mate, seemed to blame the Biden campaign directly and their rhetoric for what has happened.
Yeah, look, I believe that a lot of the rhetoric did incite this violence. You had people comparing President Trump to Hitler for the last 8 years. To say that a lot of this vitriol and the pressure cooker that was building, to say that somebody in the left or the people on the left are suddenly absolved from this, I don't think is necessarily fair. I remember January 6th, we all do, where the left made President Trump out to be a criminal and a monster when all he said was go out and protest peacefully and patriotically. And here you have the president of the United States, Biden, saying that Trump should be into the bullseye. You have many other people on the left saying things. On top of not just saying things, House Democrats attempted to pass legislation to strip former President Trump of security detail. And so all of that shows exactly how they feel about him. So it's no surprise that a crazy, deranged man, could have taken all of that. But I also want to focus on the fact that a lot of it had to do with the Secret Service and also the lack of protection. Look at the rally, you have rock concerts that are more protected, yet Secret Service is trying to say that you had the most elite equipment and electronics available surveilling the area, yet this man was able to go on a rooftop not far from the rally and commit this heinous act. So I think that there's a lot of, obviously, blame being pointed and it's a time where I believe that until we have answers, we have to be able to freely think and freely express things that we believe in. And I believe that Senator J.D. Vance is doing that. And he's also actually really been one of the leaders in the Senate Republican caucus that wants to do the investigation on the Secret Service.
Yeah, and we're hearing that there will be an investigation into the potential security lapses, because it does seem extraordinary that there were actually people there in the crowd who were alerting the security staff to the fact that they could see someone who looked like a gunman there on the roof. But Catalina, I just want to ask you about this forthcoming Republican convention. Donald Trump's making it clear that he's going to be there. Everyone is going to be watching very closely, aren't they, to see how the party responds now and what this says about the future tone and discourse of the presidential debate and the presidential race.
You're absolutely right. And I will say that the overall sentiment, look, this was building up. The support for former President Trump was building up long before the debates happened, where the world saw Biden is not cognitively at a capacity to be the leader of the free world. This was building up support for him even in the trial. And so now you have something like this. I will tell you, hearing directly from the ground, if voters weren't willing to walk on broken glass for former President Trump to vote for him in November, I will tell you, this is exactly why they're going to now. And it all comes out to voter turnout. That's really what matters in elections. And I know 4 years ago, Republicans just didn't come out to vote. There was also a lot of independents and moderates that just disliked both candidates. And so I believe that this has really taken the culmination of events over the last couple months here, and the targeted political persecution of President Trump, I think, is galvanizing the base in a way that we've never seen before.
And finally, and just briefly, if you can, Catalina, we are hearing that already those images of a defiant President Trump are being used virtually as part of his campaign.
I've spoken with a lot of combat veterans, and they say that you don't know a man's courage. It's not tested until you're shot at. And I will tell you, a lot of us could not believe. I mean, we always knew that he was a powerful leader. He had great grit. But seeing those images, and 30 seconds after being shot at, to be up and get up and have a rallying cry to the American people, showed a level of courage that makes him completely qualified to be the leader of the free world, along with all of the things that he did as the former president. A great administration. He has the thoughts, but most of all, he has the leadership to deliver for us, and the courage.
Catalina Louth, former Republican congressional nominee and Trump administration special advisor. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Well, let's bring in Professor Scott Lucas, Professor of Politics at University College Dublin's Clinton Institute. Good evening to you, Professor Lucas.
Good evening to you, Carol.
What do you make of what you just heard there, and what we've been hearing about the Republican response to this attempted assassination?
I was saddened and shocked at the political violence that we saw last night, which not only injured Donald Trump, it critically wounded 2 people, and it has killed 1 person. I'm saddened and concerned that cycle of political violence is likely to continue and perhaps be exacerbated by the Trumpist response, like you just heard. And I need to explain that as an analyst, that, not being partisan here. America has a long history of political violence. Your listeners will know that. We can talk about the presidents who've been assassinated. While we haven't had an assassination attempt on a president since 1981, in recent years, we've had Democratic Senator Gabby Giffords critically wounded in 2011, Republican Representative Steve Scalise seriously wounded in 2017, kidnapping plot against Gretchen Whitmer, the Michigan governor, in 2020, and of course the Capitol attack in 2021, where Trump supporters were threatening to execute, to hang legislators, and even Vice President Mike Pence. What is significant is that Donald Trump, and we need to be honest here, is that Donald Trump has risen as a politician by playing the politics of violence. We need to cut through what Catalina Louth said to try to deflect from this. It's Donald Trump who called for violence against hecklers at his rallies. It's Donald Trump who has called for violence against demonstrators, such as those of Black Lives Matter. It's Donald Trump who has called for violence at times against members of the media. It's Donald Trump who has called for violence against the left, as he puts it generally. That's the way he operates. We know that. And the worrying thing in the aftermath of what has happened in the last 24 hours is that certain Trumpists, not most Republicans, who have joined Democrats in saying political violence is not a part of American society, should not be a part of it, is that you have Trumpists who, without any substance, are trying to blame the left, the Biden administration, trying to blame Black Lives Matter, trying to blame judges in certain interviews.
And we've
And
heard in
if
the
you
last
do
few
that,
minutes,
yeah,
sorry, Scott, we've heard in the last few minutes that
sure.
the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, spoke to Donald Trump this afternoon by phone following the attack at that rally. Keir Starmer condemned the violence, expressed his condolences for the victims and their families, and wished the president and those injured a quick recovery. I mean, despite everything that you say, what we've seen on Donald Trump's Truth Social remarks have been one of saying that this is a time for unity. That is something that President Biden has also been saying, and we're expecting to hear from him within the next half hour. Do you think it is possible that actually this could be a sobering moment, that some of those deep divisions in the United States, there might be an effort to try to move beyond those and to have perhaps a calmer political discourse as this presidential campaign unfolds?
Oh, Lord, Carol, I hope so. Not just for this election, not Biden versus Trump, but for the sake of my country, which is in the most critical phase in peacetime since 1865. And the reason why I'm skeptical, if you will, is that Trump, or whether a member of the Trump team wrote that post on Truth Social, which does rightly should call for unity. I'm going to take you back to a moment at that rally because I was actually covering it live with your outlet last night with Times Radio. And everybody, you've talked about the iconic image where Trump puts the fist to the air against an American flag in the background, the blue sky, that sign that is going to be basically part of his campaign. What was also iconic for me was actually the soundbite that took place just after he was grazed by the bullet. You may remember that he pushes back on the secret security detail. He stands up and he says, wait, trying to get his shoes on. But he also wants to take that moment to pose. He poses with that fist up and that arm outstretched. And then he says to the crowd, fight, fight, fight.
Well, that
Those
hasn't
are
actually been, it hasn't been confirmed that those were his words. It certainly appeared that, but clearly in the
yeah,
confusion, it was difficult.
It has been confirmed by those who've actually gone back to the video and actually those who were close by at that point.
Okay.
And I've actually watched that video to establish that. No, Carol, and I'm going
What-
to tell you why it's important.
Well, we are
Because
almost out
on
of time, Professor Lucas. Just very briefly finish your point if you could.
On January 6, 2021, outside the White House, Donald Trump used almost those exact same words to the supporters that were gathered. And he did it to call on them to march on the Capitol and indeed stop the proceedings to make Joe Biden the legally elected president.
And
was
we
the
should
lengths he
say,
went
of
to in
course, that he has always
2021.
insisted that he was not trying to incite violence. It's been really good to speak to you. Professor Scott Lucas, Professor of American Studies at University College Dublin's Clinton Institute. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I much appreciate it.